Hello, everyone. My name is Chase Duffy, and I'm an educator and sometimes writer. My partner, Recording Rissa, has been doing some great content on YouTube around so many areas, including sports, neuroscience, gameplays on Dress to Impress, beauty, and many other topics. Her link will be in the bio below. Anyway, she has inspired me to record some of my short stories and creative writing over silly gameplays of iPad games. If you like what you hear, please like and subscribe so you can catch part 2. Without further ado, I give you Naltithconet Part 1 over a pretty rough gameplay of Sonic. There once was a city called Naltithconet, long, long ago. It has been nearly 1,000 years since anyone walked its lanes, and yet it is not finished with us humans just yet. Craig looks out over the Chesapeake, sea foam and salt flecking his beard. When these cross-bay trips first started, they were a novelty. Something extra, surely, but still something fun in a way. Now they were 5 months into boating being the only way to cross from Sparrows Point into Baltimore and the rest of Maryland. Sure, folks could button hook north, up into White Marsh and back down. This worked if you had an hour and a half to spare and didn't mind the traffic, neither of which worked for Craig. He glances down at the dinghy he floated upon. Without this barely saleable piece of driftwood, he'd have an even harder time. On a good day with clear conditions, he could still make it to the city in about 30 minutes. He knew some folks, mostly bankers and corporate types, who were taking the White Marsh driving route on a daily basis. Many of these people had already given in and moved from Sparrows Point. The longer the bridge was closed, the thinner the community got. A harsh wind kicks up out of the northwest, making Craig pull his collar close. He hunkers back into the alcove in which he sat, tilting the ship's thrumming engine left, then right, then left again, until the distant Baltimore skyline was satisfactorily centered. Little waves lapped the side of his boat, sending percussive slaps into his thigh on the other side. "It's too fucking cold for all this," Craig mutters to no one in particular. The wind gust strengthens, biting through the gaps in Craig's collar, wrists, and ankles. A shiver runs up his spine. In the distance, a cargo ship is navigating the narrow shipping lane around the husk of the former Francis Scott Key Bridge. It looks like a piece of flotsam, about the size of Craig's boat, is about to be caught up in the ship's hull. Maybe a sailor like myself has to be vigilant for things like that, Craig thinks, but not big bastards like that. That's how we got into this mess in the first place, Craig thinks again. Big bastards, not being vigilant. The flotsam goes under the ship surprisingly smooth, almost like a fish in a current. Craig watches the rear of the hull in warily, in case debris hasn't broken up enough in the long trip beneath the cargo ship. The last thing he needs today is to be capsized by shrapnel rocketing out of cold surf. A shadow emerges from the white water around the ship's rear, hulking and ominous. Craig looks up at the sky, searching the gloomy expanse for a patch of sun that could be creating this contrast. How can this patch of the bay be so shady when it's all doom and gloom out here? He wonders to himself. Surely that couldn't be the flotsam. As the cargo ship moves further from the shadow, and Craig closer, he sees a pinprick of light at the center of the blemish. As the waves roll in through the spot, it holds its form, like God is projecting its shape from the heavens. Craig leans forward in his seat, curious beyond all measure to see what? He can't say, but he keeps driving his boat forward towards that spot in the sea. "This is the U.S. Coast Guard. Turn back immediately," a metallic voice blares. Craig jumps from his seat, startled from the trance he was in. He looks around himself and realizes he's been steering his dinghy straight into the shipping lanes. Of course he has. How else did he think he was going to be in the same spot that some international cargo ship had just been in? Craig sits back down and wrenches the motor to the left, propelling the dinghy into a sharp right turn, back towards the area of the bay he's allowed to sail in. But the turn was too late. Craig looks out in a panic as his boat drifts towards the shadow. The dinghy's broadside dips into the spot first, and Craig thinks he is losing his mind. Is he falling, capsizing into the spot? Is this some kind of whirlpool sprouting up in the middle of the Chesapeake? No! The raging scream tears from his lungs and is lost in the waves above as he and his dinghy are swallowed up. The bay water hits his body like the Polar Express. He'd been getting splashed by the rough September surf, which was never fun, but it didn't hold a candle to an oil rig fire when compared with full submersion. Craig had to suppress the urge to gasp, instead screaming with what little breath he'd held as he went under. The sound rings in his ears, deafening him for a moment. Craig had gone under many times before. He was a salt-crusted sailor after all. But usually, when you screamed underwater, the damn water muffled the sound. Craig warily opens his eyes, noticing that the chill from his neck didn't extend up to his face, his eyelids. What he sees he cannot believe, reaching his hands up into the air pocket to rub his eyes clear before he looks again. As they enter the pocket, they too shed their casing of water. His eyes drip with the droplets from his hands as he watches the boat go further and further into the bay's depths, inching ever closer to the now not-so-small light before him. Craig starts doing math in his head. The bay is only 25 feet deep at most places. He should have hit the sea floor by now. The damn shipping channel, he says, just as he thinks it. But then that's only 50 feet. It must be 15 seconds since he went below the surface, and the light was almost blinding him at this point. At the last moment, Craig braces himself against the gunwale as his little dinghy crashes into the sea floor and the light. But it isn't he and the dinghy that give way. It is the sea floor. The white light blinds Craig, and before he knows it, his hands have come off the sides of the boat and up to shield his face. That has been part 1 of Naltithconet. If you liked what you heard, please like and subscribe and tune in for part 2. And thank you. I appreciate you pulling up for this video.